we go. 26 so far when they come in.
And this is from people from all over, right?
Yes, these are my 4 offices: West Side, Larchmont, Studio City, and Calabasas.
Excellent.
All right. Okay. Afternoon, everybody. As I had sent out, today's class is on the real estate legislation you should know about, and we have a special guest with us, SRAR GAD, Elizabeth Descartes. I can never pronounce your last name, Elizabeth. How do you pronounce it? Please pronounce it for me. Oh wait, I muted you, so can I unmute
I got it.
you?
Descartes.
You got it. Descartes. All right. So Elizabeth's going to talk about these. And if you don't know what a GAD is, it stands for Governmental Affairs Director. And we've got Elizabeth brought some slides, and it also explains in the slides, I believe, as to what a GAD is. Do you want me to just put it up, Elizabeth, and let's get going? Oh, you're muted again. Oh, sorry.
My fault. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead
Okay.
and we can get going because I want to get through because I talk about what a GAD is, and then I'll get into a little bit about what the current legislation that's going to be in November, because that's the biggest thing that we're heading to. And
Great.
So I'll just kind of tell you when to advance, which go ahead and go to the first slide.
Great. There you go.
Is that the first slide? Or is that the second slide?
The first slide is that.
Oh, got it. Okay, go to the next one.
All right.
Okay, it's missing. It's just that it's missing part of. I didn't realize whatever it sent. It is missing part of it, so it didn't transfer. There's an image that's supposed to be. So if you go to the next one, your next slide, it's missing an image. So, oh, there it is. Just
there you go.
If you go ahead and hit the forward arrow button, it's sort of animated. Keep going. It'll have one more, that last one, that's it. Okay, so there we go. So what does a GAD do? A GAD does a lot of different things. As you can see on the list, there's a whole bunch there of things that we do. I work for Southland Regional Association of Realtors. A lot of the associations, a lot of this local associations in Los Angeles and California have GADs. Some of the associations are small and they don't. CAR has a GAD, but they also have lobbyists, and I'll get into that in a little bit. And a lot of other industries have GADs. AT&T, the gas company, SoCal Gas, SoCal Edison, the water companies, a lot of them have GADs. What we do is, one, we advocate on behalf of our industry. And so I advocate on behalf of the real estate industry, mostly realtors. So anything that has to do with you doing business or being able to do business and to succeed, we make sure that that blocks aren't put in the way to hinder that. We build relationships. We attend a lot of meetings. We track issues. We write papers. We translate information. We offer advice. We participate in state and local meetings. We work with our members, such as Rich, who are on our governmental affairs committees. And hopefully we win a lot of battles. Go ahead and the next one. So we work with a lot of people. We have a really big contact list. We work with government staff, so I have contacts with some of the local electeds. I will reach out to them if it's a city bill or a state bill. I'll reach out to staff of whoever the elected is, sometimes to get information or to provide our point of view, submit letters. I work with the other associations. We are neighbored by Greater Los Angeles. On one side, we have Burbank and Conejo Moore Park. I work with them very closely. I work with our key contacts, which are called our state political contacts and our federal political contacts, SPC and FPCs. So if there is somebody who has an elected position, we have somebody on our committee who is their key contact. So it's like an additional layer of somebody who can reach out to them. I work with their members. I work with CAR and NAR. I work with the chambers and business groups. This afternoon, I was at VICA, which is the Valley Industry and Commerce Association, at their board of directors. So I work with them, which is where I network with other industries. And we build coalitions. And that's one of my favorite things to do, is work on coalitions. Next one. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, it's my fault when I forget there's animations
okay.
in it. So, everything could be, just like you have things that you have to do daily, weekly, monthly. And then as needed, just regular stuff. Next one. So this is a little bit stretched out of an image, but it's kind of a little humorous for in the GAD world of what people think we do versus what we think we do, but versus what we really do. And so if you can kind of, I think you guys can see that. It's really funny when it says what the other side thinks I do, which is they show the guy hitting the baby seal, because that's sort of sometimes what it feels like when you're trying to go against, on rent control. And some of these issues are very heartening, when there's somebody who is in an apartment and it's difficult for them to pay rent, but I have to stick up for property rights, and it's hard. So, and it gets really hard, but I'll get into it a little bit later about when we analyze bills and what we look at. So, because not everything we vote against, and not everything we vote for. So go ahead and next one. So why am I here? Why is this job a job? Why do we lobby, and why advocate? So in 1791, Congress passed the First Amendment, and nearly every trade association reflects the freedoms in their mission statements. And almost every association has somebody that lobbies in their favor for laws. There's American.
What does it stand for?
I think
No, that's good.
I don't know if there's
Got
ever
it.
a question. Just let me know. Yeah. And maybe just type questions in the chat, and Rich, if he can grab me, or we can go over them at the end. So I'm sure you've heard of these: the American Dental Association, a Lung Association, AAA, the Automobile Club is an association. AARP is one of the largest associations. Which is the American Association of Retired People. There is nearly 92,000 associations. Go ahead, next picture, or next slide, sorry. So where do you fit in? You are a realtor, so that's you in the middle, and you belong to 3 associations. You're the local, which is Southland Regional. So, I don't know, do you have any GLAR members?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
We
So
do.
you might be
And,
Greater
yeah.
Los Angeles Association or Southland Regional, so either way, that is considered a local. The state association, so if you're in California, you would belong to the California Association of Realtors, and of course the National Association of Realtors. So there's 1 national, 1 state, and 99 locals. You belong to all 3. Each one of those advocates for you on different levels, and we all work together. and you are all joined, I have a note on there, by the three-way agreement to subscribe and uphold to the code of ethics. And I always like to remind that of our members. Okay, next one. So this is a map of the county of Los Angeles. I kind of did that myself on Photoshop. So it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. So there are 99 associations in the state, and 16 of them are in the county of Los Angeles. 3 are located in the city of LA. 2 of those are a majority, which is Southland Regional and Greater Los Angeles, have the most of Los Angeles. The other one is Southwest LA, which is very small within the city. The 2 neighboring associations that I have in the gray, Pac West and Conejo Simi, are our allies. I work with those 2 associations very closely. They have actually contributed money to some of the coalitions that I have been working on when we've been fighting measures, and I've been able to help them on some of the ones that they have worked on. And we all watch out for each other. It's a lot of work because there's a lot of bills going on, and there's 88 cities in Los Angeles, and we have to watch all these agendas and watch out for everything. Now, there's also special districts in these counties and stuff, which are the fire department, the education board. And so to follow what they do in those, we need a lot of eyes. So I wouldn't be able to do it all on my own. Okay, the next one. So in the county of Los Angeles, there are 5 supervisors. A supervisor is like a mayor of unincorporated Los Angeles. So an incorporated city, there's 88 of them, would be in our jurisdiction would be Hidden Hills, Calabasas, City of San Fernando, Los Angeles, and I think there's one more. It might be Agora, but Agora might be Conejo Simi. So I'm sorry, I'm forgetting if we have one more. So I don't know if any of you guys are aware of who your supervisors are, but you could kind of tell on the map the districts. Supervisor District 5 is Catherine Barger. It looks like it's the largest, but that really is a lot of it is mountain and desert. So the land covers the most land, but it's the least densely populated, where in reverse, I believe District 2 would be the most densely populated. Our second supervisor in our district would be Lindsay Harvath, which is supervisor for District 3. And since you have people from all over, you guys will have to know which district you're in. And I'm sorry, because I'm used to doing just local here, but you would be in one of those other districts as well. And you should know if you're in a unincorporated or incorporated area. And as realtors, that is something you should know on a property that you're selling as well, because that does ultimately affect your taxes. Okay, so next slide. So the county of Los Angeles has a population of about 10 million. LA City is about 4 million, and San Fernando Valley is about 1.5 million. So you can see that's a lot of people that are in there. Next slide. Oh, Santa Clarita. How could I forget? Rich, you didn't Rich, come on. You didn't catch Santa Clarita.
I did not.
And that's a big city for us that we do a lot of work in Santa Clarita. Okay, so here's our 5 cities, and those are the approximate populations based on the last census, which I think was 2020, I believe was the last census.
Yes, it would have been 2020.
So City of LA went up to 4.1 million. Okay. Santa Clarita, 415,000, San Fernando, 24,000, Calabasas, 23. And then Hidden Hills is on there. It is a city within our jurisdiction at about 1,900. Okay, next slide. So and I apologize because I did base this is based on Southland Regional, but if any of you who are in Greater LA or any of the other associations want to know who your representatives are, I'm happy to help you. I worked really closely with Gerard Wright, who is at Greater Los Angeles. He's the GAD over there. We talk almost every day because we work on a lot of stuff with the city of LA. So the city of LA has 15 council districts. So there's 15 representatives. Currently, right now, some of them want to expand it to up to 23. Some want to go to 19, and some want to keep it. What does that mean? Well, for this, when there's the expansion, it's the city of Los Angeles has the largest budget. A majority of the taxes go to pay for staffing of the city of Los Angeles. So if you were to have more districts, you're going to have a lot more staff that you're going to have to pay for. But for us, and where I come from, it's a lot more bureaucracy. There's a lot more votes I have to go and work for. As the council sits now, it's kind of split. We know who's going to vote certain ways, and we know who are on the fence, and we can kind of go and work with the staff of those council members. So we work with all of them when there's anything. What can the city council do? Well, the mayor, the city council looks at a motion proposing a new ordinance. It can go through the system, and then the mayor can either approve it or veto it. The mayor can order elections, they can levy taxes, they can authorize public improvements, they approve contracts, they adopt traffic regulations, modify the budget. In fact, right now, the mayor is going through the budget process, and there is a white paper out on that now. If you're interested, let Rich know, and we'll get you a copy on that. What do you think is the biggest issue? It's kind of redundant to ask that. It's going to be homelessness. That's the biggest issue everywhere now, especially in the city of LA, also in the county and the state, but really in the city of LA. That's something that we're looking at, different ordinances having to do with them daily. Currently, right now, there's something that you might not necessarily think has to do with homelessness. It has to do with or crime, but what it is they're attempting to do a cashless ban. So what that means is there are businesses in the city of Los Angeles that don't want to have cash. They don't want to accept cash. They want to be cashless. So if you want to go in and buy an ice cream, even if it's just an ice cream, you have to use a credit card or a debit card, or it could be a Visa gift card or whatever, but they don't want cash. There's a restaurant in in Sherman Oaks that was robbed like 6 times in the last 2 years. They don't care. They don't accept cash anymore because they don't want a reason for people to come in. And so when you say that you don't accept cash, there's no reason for them to come in and rob because they know there's no cash in there. Now, on the other hand, is that discriminatory to people who don't have a credit card, who don't have regular banking? There's a certain demographic that they don't have access to banking like a lot of people do. So it's kind of discriminatory to them. So that's an issue that we deal with in the city right now. It's a little bit outside of our area, but it's still something that I follow because it will affect businesses. I do also follow anything that's small business because you guys are realtors, and realtors, you guys are a small business. You're considered small business. You're each your own business person. Next slide. So next we're going to move on to the state. These are our state representatives for the San Fernando Valley. We have the 4 senators. Actually, Ben Allen is a little bit in the valley. He's mostly on the west side of LA. So if you're over there, Ben Allen might be your senator. We have 5 assembly members. Now, of those 5 assembly members, 2 of them are going to be heading to Congress, Luz Rivas and Laura Friedman. And so those are open seats, and we will be getting new assembly members in November for those seats. There are 80 assembly members and 40 senators. Okay, next slide. Okay, these are the federal representatives. Now, Alex Padilla is local, so he is a senator, but we're very proud to say that he is one of our locals. He started out here in the San Fernando Valley. He was, I'm not sure if it was him or his mother was a realtor, but I think it was him. I know he was a property owner. He worked with some of the realtors here. He knows a lot of our members here very closely. Our members of Congress, Mike Garcia, Tony Cardenas, Brad Sherman, and Julia Brownlee has a small part of us. Again, it just comes into Calabasas, a small part. Okay, next slide. So how do I know what I'm going to advocate for or against? So if a new motion or a bill comes up, whether it's, in the local, in the city, now if it comes in the state or federal, we get our guidance from NAR and CAR. If it's local in the city, I follow previous policy. So generally, if something comes up and it's a rent control and it falls under something that we fought before, I know that I'm opposed to it. If it's something that's brand new and I don't know, I take it to my committee. So we have a government affairs committee in which Rich sits on that. I will take it to the committee, I will talk to them, and somebody will make a motion to either support it or oppose it. So on the state level, and it's similar, so on a state level, somebody will bring an issue to a staff or the committee. They make a recommendation, it gets voted, it goes through the policy committees, it gets voted on. They all look at it. If it passes, it goes to the board of directors. And then that becomes the policy that we follow for, federal, state, and then local. Next slide. Okay, so similar in the state, how a bill becomes a law. Somebody makes a motion. It is in a committee. It might get referred to another committee, or it might have to go to a judiciary. If it has a financial aspect, it has to be looked at that way. And once it goes through all that, it'll go to what you hear they say, it's on the floor. It goes to the floor. And that's where everybody will vote on it. So if it's the Senate floor or the Assembly floor, it's on the floor and they all have to vote on it. If it passes, it goes to the other side. So if it was in the Senate, it goes to the Assembly. If it was in the Assembly, it goes to Senate. And then it has to pass that floor as well. It could always get sent back to a committee. If it passes its House of Origin is what it's called. If it goes to the other side, if they make an amendment to it, let's say they make an amendment, it has to go back to the House of Origin and vote it on again. So it could take a long time. And I have that video, and you guys could Google it, that Schoolhouse Rock, how a bill becomes a law. And it's exactly correct. It's a little cartoon, but it's so well done. It's exactly how the process works, and it makes it really clear. So I usually play that, but I'm not going to today. Next slide. That's the Schoolhouse Rock. Okay, go ahead, the next slide. So the Realtor Party, I don't know if you guys have heard that term yet, but you are the Realtor Party. So we're not Democrat, we're not Republican, we're the Realtor Party. The new slogan that they're kind of using is it's not a red problem, it's not a blue problem, it's a purple solution. So red and blue make purple. So you'll see the realtors sometimes at some of our events will wear purple now. We do have the Realtor Blue, but purple is really about the realtors coming together and working together on solutions for housing. That's the biggest thing we want to do is get housing built so you guys have houses to sell. Because if we don't have houses for you to sell, you're not going to do business. So we are the only advocacy group in America that fights for home ownership, real estate investment, private property rights, communities. And I think we're the largest, and then we're one of the largest. National Association of the Realtors, I think, is the largest association in the nation.
I believe that's true.
Yeah, so it's pretty powerful. Go ahead, next slide. So we work on policies and regulations that harm your business and the real estate industry. We look at taxes, unfair property taxes, fees that are get passed on to your clients, sign ordinances. You wouldn't think about it, but there's sign ordinances that you guys have to deal with, unbalanced zoning, or I can't think of the word for dezoning. What is that word? Oh my God. Underzoning?
Rezoning.
It's not
Rezoning?
but it's not a rezoning. It's another word for bringing it down a level.
Oh.
I am so sorry, I'm blanking on it right now. And the reason it's coming to my mind is in the city of, in the Santa Monica Mountains, from Encino to Sherman Oaks, there's a wildlife corridor, and it's a very, very small area. And there's a lot of houses in there, and it is zoned for certain houses and certain sizes. And the city wants to, I can't think of the word and I apologize, but they want to make it so that you cannot build any more houses in that area. You have, if you have an existing house, you cannot expand on it. You can't redo it. You would have to actually come down in size. You can't do basements. You can't do, it's not redistricting. Is that Jasmine? Thank you, Jasmine. And when I think of it, I'll get that to Rich, and he can give you the information on this, what's going on. So this is going on in the city of Los Angeles, just in a very small specific area. It's something that we are opposed to. It did stop fairly quickly when this came up. We did talk to some attorneys up in California through CAR who looked at it, and they said it was whatever this word is, and that if the city of Los Angeles proceeded with it as is, they would sue. And so they backed off really quickly. So they obviously knew that what they were doing was incorrect. So, and I'm just going to back up to what Jasmine said for redistricting. Redistricting is, and I'm not going to have you back up, but if you think of the slides where we had the city of Los Angeles, we just went through redistricting for the city of Los Angeles, and each of those city councils are a certain weird shape. And the reason they get like that is because there's requirements. There's requirements of the total population, but there's also requirements on percentages of ethnicities. So it has to have a certain amount of people of color in specific colors. It could be whether it's Asian, African American, or Hispanic. And so that's how they get kind of those weird shapes. But even with those weird shapes, you can still manipulate those so that you can know your outcomes. And so if any of you were listening on the news a year ago, there was a couple of council members who were overheard speaking disparagingly of another council member and their child, who the person was Caucasian, their child was African American, and the people who were speaking were Hispanic. And one of them left the council. The other one has refused to leave and is still not left. They are still a council member who is up for re-election this year. But what they were discussing, the whole thing of what they were discussing was redistricting and trying to jerry-rig it so that they would have a majority of the votes. And so they were trying to do that. There are certain rules when electeds can meet behind closed doors on certain issues, and it's called the Brown Act. I don't know why I did the hand quotes, sorry. It's the Brown Act. There's no quotes about it. Sorry. It's the Brown Act. So what that means is they cannot meet privately on a public matter. These have to be public meetings, and they have to be open to the public. And they were caught, behind closed doors doing something that was illegal. So that's what the long of it is. That's redistricting is every 10 years they have to redistrict and cut those lines again. Because why? Because people move in and out of the areas, and it fluctuates and it changes what's inside it. So you have to do that. Okay, the next slide. So you guys are members of the California Association of Realtors. We have a PAC. We have the Realtor Action Fund. That is our PAC. In that PAC, they distribute the money into different smaller sub-PACs. The Issues Mobilization Political Action Committee impact is to dealing with issues. So if something comes up that is an issue, so anything that's not a candidate is an issue. Sign ordinance, it could be something like a sign ordinance. It could be a property tax or parcel tax. There's a little bit of a difference. Anything that's an issue, we go to that PAC, we request funding, and we use that funding to fight it. And we'll mobilize. We use that money to mobilize you as members. Let's go to the next one. So CREPAC is for candidates. That's the California Real Estate Political Action Committee. And the LCRC is the subcommittee of that for local candidates. So CREPAC will look at the state level, and the LCRC we use here locally. We do have an LCRC committee here at SRAR, and we are getting ready to do candidate interviews for one of our council districts right now. When we do that, the LCRC committee will vote on who they want to support. And then after they vote, yes, they want to support somebody, or no, they want to support somebody. Then they go, the next step is, do they want to financially contribute to that person? And there are limits. And I believe it is $900 is the limit. So it's not a huge amount that we are contributing, but it's the name and the number behind it. So to have SRAR, or as we say, the realtors, behind somebody, that's a lot, because it's a lot of votes, you know, and that is why candidates do come to us and seek our endorsement. So the next slide. So some of the issues that we have fought in the past, pretty recently, in Los Angeles, we had Measure F, and that was the fire department. And that was a parcel tax to pay for firefighter apparatus. Firefighter, that sounds fantastic, but when you looked at what the ordinance was, the measure, it was extremely unfair. It wasn't an even parcel tax. And what it did was, it wasn't charging by the square foot of the house. It was doing it, or the property value, but by the lot. So I want you to think about this, because you're realtors. If you were on the west side in like the Fairfax district, where you have a very small home, and those I'm going to guess are about 4 or 5 million, maybe, I don't know, right? Okay, with a very small postage stamp size lot. Now go out to Lancaster, where you can get an acre for a few $100,000, right? If you do a parcel tax based on that lot size, the person in Lancaster is going to be paying, you know, 4 times the amount as the person whose house is, you know, 10 times the value of theirs. And so we look at that, and that's not fair, because in the areas where they don't have the money, and it's the lower income, it's the first level to get in, your first time buyers or whatever it is, that makes it more expensive for them to be able to live in a home. The other thing about that one is it was an evergreen. What evergreen means is there's no end date. And we would rarely ever approve or support something that had no end date. That's just not good policy. But more and more lately, and there's one coming later I'll talk to you about, that they're trying to pass things with no end date, because they don't want to have to keep coming back and asking for money. So they just want to have to ask for it once, and then it be perpetual and keep coming to them. Measure EE was the one for the schools. The Los Angeles School District had that one. That one lost as well. That was also a huge, like a really high tax. It was, I can't remember it now, because it was I want to say it was at least 2 or 3 years ago, and that one was a very high one. Now, SB 6, so when you see a number in front of when you see letters in front of a number, that means it's a state bill. So SB is, it would have been Senate bill. 679 Now, this established the Los Angeles County Housing Solutions Agency. Unfortunately, we fought that up in the state. We almost beat it, and it got a reprieve, and it came back, and it won, and it passed. Once it passed, as soon as it passed, it opened up locally in Los Angeles, because it was a specific bill for the county of Los Angeles to be able to come up with this agency. It just was allowing them to have this agency and allowing that agency to create any taxes it wanted to fund it. So this was also a very highly unusual one. We were very opposed to it. Passed. So what now we have is this agency, and they can come up with any way they want to fund it. And the first thing they did was United to House LA ballot initiative, which you guys know as the mansion tax. So that was ULA, United to House LA, mansion tax. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that one. Now that one is also spread, tried to spread to San Diego. San Diego was able to beat it in the state level. They heard from us. We were able to talk to the people who were fighting that, and you know, like I said, we work with each other. When you go through something, whether you win or lose, you always learn, and you share that information so that another person doesn't have to go through the same thing. They can kind of skip ahead. Okay, next slide. This is a red alert. Hopefully, if you guys ever see one of these from us, please take action and do what we have the request. Because like I said, when we had SB 679, if we were able to kill that in the state, we would not have ULA. We wouldn't have the mansion tax now, because we would have been able to kill it at the state level. We did also do a red alert on ULA locally. It was a ballot measure. We did a whole campaign on that and sent postcards out to everybody. But unfortunately, that one did pass. But whenever we notify you, now CAR might also notify you about something, or NAR might notify you about something. It's generally something that is bad for the industry, something that's very bad for the industry. And for you just to take a few minutes to reply is honestly the least you guys can do for your industry. If you guys want to have a job in 5 years, these are the kinds of things that you need to kind of think about and fight. And so this one I'm showing you was, vote no on ACA 13. So ACA 13 is going to be on the November ballot, but this is when it was in the state. And at the end, if we have time, I'll go over ACA 13 too, because I'm keeping my eye on the clock. But as you can see, this one went out. We sent this to all of our members on the last page there. You can see all the local associations. We have the logos on there. We formed a coalition on this to unite, hopefully, the realtor members so that they had a greater understanding that we're all opposed to this. Because it's possible, sometimes there might be something that we're opposed to, but Greater LA might be acceptive of, or vice versa. Rent control. Rent control is very subjective. So there might be things that our association are like, nope, we would never allow that. But another association might be like, yeah, we would accept that, but not this. So this was really just to kind of show that we were all united on this issue on the ACA 13. Okay, next slide. And I'll go over what that is in a minute. So we go beyond supporting candidates with money. We actually go out, we work with them, we communicate with the electeds, and we go and lobby them. We just had our legislative day on May 1st. Every year CAR has one, and every member is welcome to attend. It's free to attend. You just have to pay for your airline ticket up there. So honestly, if you get it when Southwest has their sale, their $39 sale, it's under $100 round trip for you to be able to go up there for the day. If you would have to register with me if we know you're going. We provide you your taxi to and from the airport. We will give you lunch. We get you your snacks. If you're flying back the same time as I do, I buy you dinner at the airport. So it's a very inexpensive thing, but it's an amazing, amazing day. As you can see, there's about 2,400 people in front of the Capitol there on that photo. We had 2,400 this year. And what we do is we go and we see each of our assembly members and our senators. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. I was going to go further into it, but we're kind of getting short on time, so I want to kind of get through some of this stuff. That was our Ledge Day. Go ahead and skip that slide. Real quick, I'll just talk about, we have the Realtor Action Fund. So the Realtor Action Fund, some of you may have contributed through your dues billing. Some of you might contribute on your own. But like I said, we are nonpartisan. So we don't just look, if we're doing a candidate support, we don't just look if you're a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent. We look at the issues, and we look at the ones that will support the real estate industry, support housing, support small businesses. We've had to fight things in the past having to do with your commission. There was a time when they wanted to hold your commission out of escrow. They would maintain it. The franchise tax board was going to hold your commission until you did your taxes and you had to ask for back what you were supposed to get back. So instead of you having your money, using it for what you need to, and then paying whatever you needed at the end of the year, it would have been reversed. They would have held your money and you would have had to ask for what was due back to you. I think it was like a 33 or something off the top percent that they were going to hold. And we fought that because that's your capital money that you need to invest back into yourself. You put that into your marketing, that pays for your lease on your car and your gas and whatever it is that you need to be doing to keep your business going. And so RAF is our PAC that we contribute to as realtors. And we use that money, and it's all voluntary. So we have that voluntary. Okay, next one. Oh, you did the one with the levels. So these are just some of the levels that we do have on that. I only did up to the state major contributor level, which is our Capital Club. And I just want to mention that Rich Pisani is a national major donor, and he's what's called a Sterling R. So thank you, Rich. Okay. Next page. Some of the things that, I can ask you guys to help is to be a legislative liaison. If Rich gets you any of the information or forwards any of the things from me, or you get something from me, or please read our newsletter. If you receive our newsletter, sometimes it'll be in there, the information, share it. Think about attending next year's legislative day in 2025. It's going to be the first week of May. It's always usually the first Wednesday in May. Sign up for text alerts. I'll have a slide coming up with our text alerts. Respond to the red alerts that we send out. Contribute to RAF. If you close a deal, it's only a small amount. $20 is the entry level to contribute. You don't have to be a major donor, but just a small amount. And that's an investment. It's like some people call it insurance on your industry to make sure you guys have jobs, in 5 years, have business in 5 years, right? Next one. So this is Pericles. So just because you don't take an interest in politics doesn't mean politics won't take an interest in you. Because I do hear that a lot. I'm not interested in politics. It doesn't affect me. I don't want to, I don't like all that stuff. It's negative. And you don't have to don't think Trump Biden kind of stuff or Fox News or any of that, because that's not what we're dealing with. That's not what we are. We're down really in the nitty gritty dirt of it on the day-to-day of really making sure that we elevate you guys, that we want to make sure that you guys all succeed in your business. Next page. So like I said, this is a few of the things that you wouldn't think of normally having to do with real estate or our industry, but it is, there's rental house assistance animals, right? That if you have a rental, do you allow assistance animals? Same with the medical marijuana. There's impact fees. Homelessness affects you. Sales tax. Sign ordinances we talked about earlier. Wildfire zones. A lot of you, I'm sure, are dealing with having to be able to get insurance, right? Because those wildfires just devastated a lot of the insurance industries. Locally, we have TOPA, Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act, and then its counterpart COPA, which is Community Opportunity to Purchase Act. Electrification. So that was a big thing going around. Agora a few years ago looked at doing electrification. There's been a lot of reports coming out on that. The city of Berkeley passed it a few years ago. The Restaurant Association, so again, another association sued because it was discriminatory to the Asian restaurants that had to do wok cooking who used gas. So they sued. It went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of the gas, being able to have gas. So the city of Berkeley had to recall that ban that they had on that. Doesn't mean electrification's gone. There's just going to be different versions of it coming down, and it probably won't be as strict as that one was, but we'll still have to deal with that one. Next slide. So please take out your phones if you're not already on them. And if you could opt into some of these. Honestly, you don't get a lot of text at all. You might get one, maybe two a year on this one. If you text realtors to 30644, this is for NAR and CAR. So if you get one from this, it's a really big deal for you to, okay, this is just a really big one for you to be able to opt into so that you can respond to those red alerts. The other one is for SRAR. We do have group texting codes, and if you're not an SRAR member, we honestly don't know if you opt into one of these and get our texts. We wouldn't know because we don't qualify you if you're a member or not. But we have some different texting options. We have WhatsApp. If you text WhatsApp to the 818-338-1414 number, that will tell you what our events are. It'll be the networking, mixers, multicultural events. We have Involve, which is our community service. So we just recently volunteered for Assemblymember Gabriel's Day of Service, and we would text out for people to join that. COM is commercial, so that'll have all of the commercial classes will go out, notifying you of the networking and the commercial classes, and then EDU is all of our classes. So that is it for the slides. You can close down the slides.
Okay.
And I'm just going to really quickly go over this because you had talked about some of the legislative stuff. Oh, and I did want to show you this. I'll show you in my, so you should have all received this from CAR. Sorry, I'm not a YouTuber, so I don't know how they do this. Okay, that's as best I can get it. You should have all received this. Maybe if I move my light, does that help? No, it doesn't help. And it is sent out, and it just talks about, they call it the treasure map or whatever it is, the treasure of savings. And it talks about the contributions to our PAC, what it saves you in terms of your individual a year. You know, we preserve dual agency. Now, I'm not going to get into the lawsuit. I don't know what's going to happen with dual agency, but that is something that we have historically preserved in California. So, you know, that saves you money right there. So just real quick, I'll just go over a couple of some past things that you might have heard about. If you're young, you might not know. So one of them would be Prop 13. In 1978, the California Constitution was amended by the voters to restrict the increase of property taxes. So Prop 13 requires assessment of the taxable property based on its fair market value at the time of the purchase. And the increase in taxes is limited to 1% plus whatever bonds and stuff could be voted in to a maximum of 2%. So you know what your taxes are going to be every year, generally, you know what your increases are going to be. Why is that important? If Prop 13 gets challenged a lot. If it were lifted, it would, the value now of the property would continually be reassessed, and it would raise the amount of your tax, your property tax, continually, and it would also not limit the amount of bonds. So you could have more of those bonds attached to your property tax as well. So you could go from a maximum of 2% to who knows, 7, 8, 9, 10. I don't even know. Could be, you know, high. Now, why is that important? For those of you who there's another term, and is it like MIPI? When somebody says, you know, how much can I offer on a house based on my payment, right? And then you guys do the math and you say, okay, well, this is the your loan. This
PITI, principal, interest, tax.
PITI. Now, for those of you who are dealing with this insurance issue, you know you can't give a good quote on that right now, right? Because the interest, you have no idea until they get a quote on the place that they're buying because of this whole wildfire stuff. So think about that. If we don't have Prop 13, you have no idea, because it's going to continually go up, and it's going to go up by the assessed value of the house. But then on top of that, the bonds, that'll just keep pounding and pounding on it. So that's why Prop 13 is important. A lot of people, when they think Prop 13, they think people who are older, like my mom. She is a beneficiary of Prop 13. She's been in her home since 1966, 65. No, I'm sorry, 1956. So she has benefited from that, and she pays a very low property tax. And then they think, well, you know, the neighbors across the street are paying a lot more because they came in later. The properties get reassessed when somebody purchases it new, but that person will benefit from that going forward. So there's always a benefit to everybody. It's not just the older people who have been in their homes for a long time that benefit. Everybody will benefit. If you buy a house today, you will benefit from Prop 13, because if it is gone, you will not know what your taxes are going to be from year to year. And you will ultimately potentially have to sell that house because you can't afford to live in it anyway. That is why Prop 13 is very important and something that we fight for continuously. Now, the next one is Costa-Hawkins, if you've ever heard Costa-Hawkins, and the Ellis Act. So Costa-Hawkins came about in 1995, and Ellis Act was in the 80s. Ellis Act was, at the time, housing providers who had apartments were losing money on their properties. It was a very different time than it was right now. And they were restricted on there was a high restriction on the rents. They couldn't make the housing providers couldn't make their mortgage payments because they couldn't charge the rents. So they wanted to get out of the business. And what they did was they were, one, either taking back the property for themselves to be able to live in, or two, selling it. So turning the apartments into condos. So you saw that a lot in the 80s. So I'm sure as realtors, when you're out there and you go, this looks like an apartment. Well, at one point it was an apartment, but they've been turned into condominiums. And that's because at that time, the person was not able to make money to stay in that business. So Costa-Hawkins were actually one was a senator and one was a assembly member. And this was in 1995. And what Costa-Hawkins is protections of rent control, protections of rent control to allow people who are housing providers to be able to do business without certain restrictions put on top of them. So single family homes, condominiums, new construction, all are exempt from it. So if you have something that is older and it falls before that, then it falls under rent control. So if you do leases or if you sell homes, you kind of know all this kind of stuff. The other big part of Costa-Hawkins is the vacancy decontrol. So let's say you have a rental unit and you've had a person in there for 10 years and they're only paying $1,200, but the current market rate could be $2,800, right? Because it's a lot's changed and not last year. With the control, if that person moves out, the next person who moves in, you can only raise it like, I think 0.5% or something like that. It's a very small amount, as opposed to being able to bring it up to market rate. Now, what happens if you don't bring it up to market rate? You now are forcing that housing provider to not have income coming in, so they don't have that income to maintain the building, to keep up with landscaping is always the first thing to go. So if you ever drive down a street like Van Owen or something in the valley and you notice certain buildings where some are just not kept up at all and you think, why? It's probably something that's under rent control and it has some people who've been living there for a long time. And they just don't have the income coming in to be able to maintain that. And that unfortunately brings down other properties in the neighborhood on that. So,
by pressing
okay,
7,
real quick.
8 by pressing 9.
Wait, hold on.
Okay, that's all right. Okay, I'm going to go over a few of the things that are going to be
Sure.
on the ballot for. Is everybody still hanging in? I'm so sorry.
Sure,
Okay.
go ahead.
A few things that are going to be on the ballot that you are going to watch for. Now, it's too early because June is the deadline for the ballots, and they don't name them or give them numbers until after that. So everything has a name, like a little catchy name. So it's not going to be Prop 10 or Prop 12 yet. We don't know that yet. They're just by their names of what we've named them. So there is a new one coming out, and this is by Michael Weinstein, who is the president of the AIDS Healthcare Foundation, and it's called the Justice for Renters Act. And this is one to repeal Costa-Hawkins. This is his third attempt at doing that. He failed twice before. Now, as a side note, there is a group that is trying to stop him. They are now trying to make it that if you are raising money under healthcare, that you have to spend that money on healthcare. You can't be using it to fund ballot initiatives that have nothing to do with healthcare, because it is millions and millions of dollars that he has spent, and then millions and millions of dollars spent fighting it. So he tried twice before in 2018 and 2020. So this will be his third attempt. Now, there was in 2020, we did have the Tenant Protections Act called AB 1482 that did provide rent statewide. It's called statewide rent control. So we do have some protections now put in the state, statewide rent control. However, he still wants more. And so that is something, whenever it comes out, we are going to be opposed to that one. Now, ULA, I talked about that a little bit before. You should all know that one. It's a document transfer property tax. If the home value is 5 to 10 million, it's a 4%. And if it's over 10 million, it's 5.5%. We fought that very hard here at SRA and at Greater LA. We worked really hard on that. Unfortunately, we did not win. That is the largest tax increase in LA history. It even makes apartment buildings more expensive because all of a sudden when the ULA passed, people stopped building now. They didn't look at the unforeseen consequences. They said that this was to fix homelessness. However, the first chunk of money all went to staff. It went to staffing within these nonprofit organizations that were behind it. They all asked for money to staff so that they could go out and work with the homeless or whatever, but none of it was for programs that were already enacted or beefing up the programs. It was really just about building staff, including the city of Los Angeles. They did use some of that money for their own staff as well. But again, that's what the oversight had allowed. So it's not that we don't want to work on homelessness. It's not that that's not an issue for us, but it really requires a comprehensive policy that includes facilities and services for mental health care and treatments for substance abuse and disorders, and services for victims of domestic violence, and housing is really only a small part of it. And so just think the money that's coming in, it's really, I think we have more homeless now than we even did before. So that leads me to the next one, which is the recall of ULA, and there's a ballot measure called the Taxpayer Protection Act. That will give voters more power in the local taxes and fees that they're allowed to pass, because it has to be voted on. It will now have to go back to being a 2/3 vote. So ULA passed because it was able to pass by 50%, because it used to be for taxes, it had to be 2/3% of the people had to vote for it. There was a change where it said, well, locally, if somebody came up with a ballot initiative, which means me, it's a non-elected person comes up with something, I gather signatures and I put it on the ballot. I don't have to get as many votes. I only have to get 50% plus one. And so that's how that one passed. It didn't pass by the 2/3. So what TPA is going to do, Taxpayer Protection Act, will say that it has to be by 2/3 vote to raise taxes now, going back to what it used to be. Let me see where, June. So what happened was that they got the signatures, they got over 1 million signatures, it was put on the ballot. Governor Newsom, because this is in direct opposition of one of his ballot measures, sued and asked it to be pulled from the ballot. It went to the court. Supreme Court heard it 2 weeks ago, and June is the deadline, end of June. So I believe by June 22nd, the Supreme Court has to let us know its ruling. So what the court has to decide on is whether, one, the measure has to be taken before they take it off the ballot. It has to know two things. One, would that measure change the state constitution in any way that it's not allowed to? And then two, would it impair the government function? So those are the two things that has to look at. So we are in support of TPA. And again, that information will come to you via our newsletters and hopefully Rich when we get that out to you. I think the last one that I'm going to be talking about real quick is Measure H 2.0. So we talk a lot about the homelessness. In 2016, there were two local measures, one in the city of Los Angeles, which was HHH, and one in the county was H. So the city is responsible for the housing. So they have HHH they have been raising money to provide housing, and Measure H is in the county, and they're to provide the services. So those are the go-alongs with that. So whether it's alcohol counseling and drug abuse counseling, or mental illness, prescriptions, somebody following up with them, all that, that's what would fall under that. Measure H is the county one. It is set to expire in 2018. It is currently a 0.5% sales tax. The new Measure H 2.0, so again, remember that was going to expire in 2018. They're trying to preempt it right now and extend it starting in November. They want to increase it to a 1% sales tax, and it would be an evergreen, so no sunset date. So that's another one that has a very problematic. It does not have a prop number yet, or whatever. Whatever ends up being on the ballot, we will let you know, and we will get you guys all the information on that. Because we do have H that will go in until 2028. So we don't need to jump on this, but the reason they want to jump on this right now is because they want to jump on this whole homeless issues problem and get people, who want to get rid of the homeless to just give this never-ending amount of money, because it would never end since it is an evergreen. Were there any chat questions?
I didn't see any chat questions.
Okay.
I have a question. We didn't really talk about this, but I remember SB 9 and 10 regarding the subdivision of lots. That's become problematic, correct? If I'm not mistaken, in that they're having issues actually facilitating that. Out in the field.
So, and I apologize with SB 9 and 10 in mixing up which one of them, but one of them, it allowed the subdivision of a lot.
That's 9, yes.
Yeah, and 9 and 10, which one was 10?
To change the zoning to a maximum of 10 residential
zoning.
units.
Okay. Like yes. So for SB 10, people were really up in arms about that. There was a lot of opposition, but 99, 98%, 95%, something like a really high amount of Los Angeles, it didn't qualify for it. If you read it, what the property had, it had to have a certain amount of lot size. It couldn't be within a certain amount from here or there, a school, this or that, or whatever it was. So there was a very small amount of houses that would even qualify. I mean, I'm talking under 100,000 houses and properties that would have ever even qualified for that. And I believe that is the one that is dead, that is not able to go forward anyways on the state. The SB 9 is the ADU one, which I think you could do the lot split and put the ADU. Now, I will tell you that a majority of all the new housing that is being provided in Los Angeles right now is ADUs. That has the highest amount. That is how we are getting people housed right now, is by doing ADUs. So now for me, that's a very short-sighted, short-termed solution. I think that the electeds don't really know. I don't want to say they don't want to do the work. I think they don't know how to do the work to start getting housing built, because that's what we need. We really need housing. If you think about that building in LA that has all the graffiti on it, that's been abandoned from the owners that were in China. So that's really the only thing that has been able to be built, is this really high-end, expensive properties, because that's what can pencil out for whoever the developer or builder is, for them to be able to make money. And people think because it's a high-end property, well, they're making a lot of money, and they can make less money and just do market rate. And it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. It's not like, well, I don't need to make as big a profit so I can make the houses cheaper. It's depending on the lot size and the amount of units, it's nearly $1 million just to put a spade in the ground to start the dig. And it takes 5 years to be able to do that. And it costs money. And the person, they're not doing this on cash. They're going to take a loan out on a property. So they're making their payments. They have a lot of stuff that they have to cover and carry. So it's just very expensive. Some of the times when we've gone to the city council members, we've asked for things where, let's get permitting fees done quicker. Let's come up with ways to bypass some things that are not safety measures or whatever, but that we can get housing going quicker. And I'll tell you, one of the things that came out of it was the ADUs, because the city of Los Angeles, if you go to their website, they do have pre-approved ADU plans. And if you follow one of their plans, it gets expedited through, because it already has the whole permitting process. You still have to have somebody come out and do the inspections, but as long as they follow that plan, you're expedited through. When ADUs first started, we had a realtor member who tried doing one in his yard, and it took him years and all this money and time to go down to the city and wait in line. It was, this was before they had that program. So because they have that program, we have been able to get a lot of these ADUs built. So any more questions?
Seeing any, I did want, I in my West Side office meeting, some agents wanted, and Elizabeth, you don't have to stick around for this, but AB 968, which it talks about flippers. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Elizabeth.
I'm not.
Okay. So AB 969 requires sellers of a single-family residential property to disclose, among other things, any room additions, structural modifications, and other alterations or repairs made since acquiring the property. This disclosure must include the name of each contractor involved and a copy of related permits. For residential flippers, this law introduces additional due diligence and documentation requirements. They must, and these go back 18 months. So this is why it is associated with flippers. Yeah, that you have to disclose what you have done to the property since you acquired it, if you're selling it within 18 months of acquiring it. So that goes into effect July 1st. So I want to make sure that my agents are aware of that. The other thing that I wanted, and I don't know what the bill number is, but it is regards to balcony inspections. That an inspection is required. A building that has 3 or more multifamily dwelling units, and only if the elevated structure, the balcony or elevated walkway or staircase, is built or supported with wood or wood-based materials. So these either walkways or balconies, which are 6 feet off the ground, 3 or more apartments or condos, these structures, if they're wooden, have to be inspected by January 1st of 2025. And if there's an emergency, then it has, problem with these structures. They have to be taken care of immediately. But if it's non-emergency repair, they have 120 days to do it. So that's it doesn't say, well, it actually is two different bills. I just found it. It's SB 721, which was passed in 2018, which applies to apartment buildings, or SB 326, passed a year later, which would be 2019, applies to condo associations. So, and once again, the date to keep in mind is January 1st of 2025. Oh, one other thing, Elizabeth, Prop 19, anything about
Sure.
gazelle?
So-
Walkways. It does deal with walkways if they are elevated. That's all has to do with elevated stuff.
So Prop 19, as you know, the realtors were supportive and behind Prop 19 and did signature gathering for that one. And that had to do with when you relocated to be able to carry your Prop 13 tax with you. Now, as part of the trade-off of that, they needed to have money somewhere. And so what happened is if you had a secondary property that if you passed away and you passed it to a child or grandchild, if they did not live in the property, it would reassess the value to current. If they lived in the property, it would keep it at the lower property. But if they didn't, now, if you think about that, if it's a secondary property and they're not living in it, that means it's an income property. And if it's been willed to them from a parent or grandparent, hopefully it would have a lot of equity in it. So it really would be running as a business. But we have people who are saying that the taxes were coming up too high, that they weren't able to keep the property, they were losing it unfairly. And so Howard Jarvis is working to what they're saying is, quote unquote, recall the death tax. They're calling it a death tax. Now that part of it has nothing to do with the realtors, because our part really has to do with the being able to relocate. So, I'm kind of arm's distance from allowing Howard Jarvis to do what they need to do on that Prop 19 part of not taxing people if they inherit the property, and they can work on that as much as they want. So I try and be neutral on that, but what I say is that if you've inherited it and it's it's a business, so to be reassessed, and you should be able to, if you're renting out the property, you have income coming in from it, which should cover what should be covered. But if Howard Jarvis is able to get that part of that recalled, then that's more for them. You know, the downside of Prop 19 is when we had an analysis done of it, we were predicting that a lot more people would be able to move, whether it was parents moving closer to their grandkids, et cetera, and taking their lower assessed value with them. Now, people still can use that. You need to know that if somebody relocates, you make sure that they take the lower assessed value with them. The down part of it is during COVID, the interest rates were so low and dropped so low. We have people with, 3% interest rates that even with saving money on their property taxes, if they can't afford to buy a new house because the interest rates are now what, at 6 something? They're around 7?
7, almost
7?
pretty much,
7?
pretty close to 7. Yeah.
So it's doubled, and you lose a lot of money. You know, my niece was evaluated for a home a year and a half ago, I think, and based on her savings and income, and they said, oh, well, you can afford to purchase a home at, $550,000. She just had it redone more recently, and it dropped down to $450,000. Nothing changed except the interest rate,
Right.
and prices didn't go down to reflect that. The prices are still going up. So, all right. Okay.
Right.
Well,
Thank you so much. I
get rid of any of the
appreciate you
information to
taking
share with you.
time. Yes, and as Elizabeth talked about, if Realtor Action Fund, if you can step up and you see all that Elizabeth does, and she fights for our industry. There are, they're fighting on the state level and the federal level. If you can contribute to that fund, it is helping our industry, and I really, really, really encourage you. At least the cost of doing business, which is what now? Is it
148.
still 148?
Yeah.
It's still 148. 148 a year, and look at the benefits that you reap from it. So I really encourage you to do that. And I thank you all for who stuck with us over the time. I think this is invaluable information, and thank you so much. And Elizabeth, I'll see you on Thursday or tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
All right, see you. Bye. Thanks.